In this episode today, we're going to talk about how to bounce back from adversity. And I'm going to take some time to share a secret with you. Let's elevate. Hey, what's up? I'm Kantis Simmons, the academic guru and leading authority on school improvement, as well as the author of Playing Your A Game and your host for Educate to Elevate. Let me say, first of all, thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in to this podcast. Thank you so much for allowing this podcast to be one of the top education podcasts for teachers and educators on iTunes. And I'm just so honored that you tune in every single week to listen to me here at the Educate to Elevate studios. Now, if this is your very first episode, I would love for you to go back and look at the previous episodes. There's some great content and some great interviews there. We talked to a principal and she talked about the most important leadership skills you need as an administrator. We even go into a session with a teacher who works with special ed students, and she talks about how she does that. And we also talk about work-life balance and how to engage your students. So there are a lot of great things on those previous episodes. So if you're tuned in for the very first time, thank you for being here and check out the other episodes. Now, in today's episode, I want to talk about how to overcome adversity and bounce back. I realize that every school year, it can become tiresome. There can be challenges, there can be heartaches, there can be headaches, there can be some things that have not gone the way that you've planned in this semester, but guess what? You can bounce back. You see, years ago, growing up in the Atlanta area, I was born into a beautiful family with my mom and dad, and they loved me, and they raised me, and they nourished me, and they always impressed upon me, Kantis, you can do whatever you want to do. Kantis, you can be whatever you want to be. Kantis, you can have whatever you want to have. And they instilled that in me because they birthed a child with a birth defect. Now, I'm not sure if you've never, ever noticed my birth defect, but yes, because of this birth defect, there were moments when I battled with low self-esteem. There were moments when I felt like people wouldn't accept me. There were moments when I had this crazy way of thinking because of my birth defect. And over years of celebrating myself and years of realizing that I'm unique and over years of changing the way I think, now I'm the coolest guy with 7.25 fingers. Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and give some love to the nub. 7.25 fingers. Now, why do I share that? I share that, first of all, because I want you to know me. I want you to understand the challenges that I went through growing up as a teenager and through college and knowing when I was a scientist and I would put on the plastic rubber gloves and I would reach down to pick up the beaker in the science lab and my flapping fingers would dip down into the acid. Or when I started my speaking business and I would stand up on stage and I would encourage the students to play their A game. And while I'm speaking, I would notice a student sort of drift off and start thinking about my birth defect. So after years of coming to grips with who I am, I've learned how to turn my mess into my success. You see, this school year, you may have battled with some mess. You may have had some challenges this year that you didn't plan on popping up. Maybe there were some students that got on your nerves. Maybe there were some parents that didn't do what they were supposed to do. Maybe there were some other colleagues in your department, in your school, your administrators that absolutely drove you nuts. and that's called mess. But how do you overcome that mess? How do you overcome those challenges? How do you overcome those situations that you didn't plan on having? You see, one of the things that got me over my mess is that I had to acknowledge. I had to acknowledge where I was and what I have. I had to acknowledge that I am a black man missing some of my fingers. I had to accept that. I had to acknowledge and accept the fact that I was born with the birth defect. So with you, what can you acknowledge and accept about this school year? Can you acknowledge and accept that you gave it your all? Can you acknowledge and accept that maybe you did not give it your all? What can you acknowledge and accept about yourself this past school year? Another thing that I had to do was that I had to ask the hard questions. You see, I went to my mom a few years ago, probably a decade or so ago, and I said, "Mom, what happened to my fingers? Were you smoking crack? Were you smoking weed? Was my dad beating you? What was going on mentally with you that could potentially cause this birth defect?" And my mom, she said, "Well, baby, it may have been the birth control that I was on. It may have been, the time period when I was pregnant with you and I slammed my finger in the door, and it may have hindered the baby's finger, well, your finger." And I said, "Mom, okay." But we had that hard conversation where I had to ask those questions. What questions do you need to sit down and ask yourself? Yeah. What questions do you need to ask yourself about this school year? Did you give it your all? Were you consistent? Were you a hard worker? Where could you have given more? What could you have done differently? What are you happy about? What do you feel like you've accomplished? What? You see, these are questions. And I want you to ask yourself those hard questions. Because here's the thing. When you want to overcome challenges or overcome mess, you have to look within to ask those questions. And thirdly, I had to not only ask the questions, but answer the hard questions. And one of the questions that I had to answer was, if you never know what caused the birth defect, will you be cool with that? If you never ever know what caused your fingers to be wedged together and the little nub and to develop the blood vessels, if the doctors couldn't tell you, or your mom couldn't tell you, or your dad couldn't tell you, would you be cool with that? So let me ask you, after asking the hard questions, can you answer the hard questions? Can you look within and those questions that you've asked yourself, can you answer those questions? Because the best way and the only way to overcome challenges, to overcome mishaps, to overcome mess, is to not allow it to keep you where you are. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to accept and acknowledge where you are. I want you to ask yourself the hard questions, and I want you to answer the hard questions. If you would, take out a sheet of paper. You can pause this video, or you can do this once you end this video. But I want you to pull out a sheet of paper, and I want you to write down all the things that didn't go well this school year for you. Yes, write those things down. Write down those disappointments. Write down those students that tick you off. Write down those things that you could have done better. And I want you to make a list of all the things that you are grateful for, all the things that you are happy about, all the things that you feel like you gave it your all and you are excited that you accomplished this school year. So write down those disappointments and write down those successes. Because now when you look at the disappointments versus the successes, I guarantee you that you will have something to be thankful for. I'm thankful for the fact that I'm different. I'm thankful for the fact that I'm unique. I'm thankful for the fact that I'm the coolest guy with 7.25 fingers. Bet you can't do it like me, because I accept that. And I've asked the hard questions, and I've answered the hard questions. And I've realized that regardless of what goes on, every single day gets better because I love myself. I love what I do, and I love my passion for what I'm doing. And I'm inspiring you, educator. I'm inspiring you, principal. I'm inspiring you, professor, to look beyond what has happened this school year and keep pushing. Keep jumping over hurdles. Keep dealing with situations and coming up with solutions so that you can continue to educate a student so that they will elevate. Hey, my name is Kantis Simmons, and remember this, there's only one game in life that counts, and that's your A game. You can overcome every challenge.